In REST, we have the ability to do multiple like methods and HTTP verbs, and one of them is like put and post for updating data and creating data. And so that's what I'm doing here in GraphQL with a mutation. Mutation is very the idea is similar to REST, where like technically you could use a get for like updating data, but you wouldn't because that's not the standard. Similarly, you could do the same thing with the mutation. Like you could use a mutation for querying data, and then you could, vice versa, use a query for inputting data, which is not what you're supposed to do, but you could, right? It's just another keyword to help separate logic is all a mutation really is. And you're just supposed to put the data, not data, but you're supposed to put the logic in here that's going to update data and create the data. So I'm kind of just hard coding some values here, and that's because of a bug I found in this setup. If you look at the logs, and this is the bug, is if I try to get the ID, it always returns not undefined because ID is a string, and this whole mutation is doing a put to a REST API through it. So if I run this mutation with an argument and I try to get the ID value, which you would expect like ID to return 21 then, because that's what I'm passing to it. And so if I do this and I look up here, it's undefined. Why? Because they didn't wrap this thing in double quotes. So if I do this again and get rid of that, do this thing, so you can look right here. Look, it's not proper JSON. That's why I can't get it. So I don't know what happened with that, but I made a GitHub issue post about it, and I just hard to code some values to tell you about a mutation and kind of how that works. Again, I'm just using a REST API that I found on the internet as a dummy API. This could be any data source like NoSQL database, schema database like MySQL, IoT topics. I don't know, like anything you write to or whatever you could do in here. Whoops. I'm gonna save this. Looking at more documentation for mutations on GraphQL.org. They have some other examples too about Star Wars. I pretty much say the same thing that I just said because I read it and fed it back to you. You can have multiple fields of mutation. So what this is doing is it's just returning the response. So I'm just printing out my employee name. So you can see my employee name is James, and that's what I gave it as an argument. So just in this case, the REST API I'm hitting is just returning the same data I give to it. But that's kind of like mutations in a nutshell. It's just a way of separating the things that create data and the things that get data.